up and welcome back, Weary Writers. It is week 3 of NaNoWriMo, and we have some thoughts on it. I'm Alex, and I live in Los Angeles, California.
And I'm Jay Lawrence, and I live in Berlin, Germany. Alex, how was your third week?
It was interesting. It was a challenge. I'm not gonna lie. I'm really struggling with this Nano. How was your week?
It had its ups and downs. I definitely ended last week on a high. I was really hitting big numbers every day. I felt like I was going along really nicely. And then I uncovered a plot hole, and it sent me in a complete tailspin spiral. And from the weekend till now, I've been struggling to get the words out. So yeah, it's been a ride. But before we jump into that, how about we do a question of the day?
All right, let's hear it.
What is the strangest thing that you have done this week to avoid writing?
Well, I don't know if you can tell, but my backdrop has changed a little bit. I woke up on Sunday and I thought that it would be a great idea to just completely redo my office. So that's what I'm doing. I'm in the process of putting up some new bookshelves, and I'm still not done. And it's taken a lot of time. And yeah, it's taken a lot of time that I could be using to write, and I'm not.
So you went big with your distraction.
I went very big with my distraction. I mean, in my defense, it's something that I've wanted to do for a really long time, redesigning the office, and Target had some really nice bookshelves that were very cheap, and I wanted to buy them before they sold out. So yeah. I will be very happy when it's done. Hopefully it will be inspiring and make me want to write more once my bookshelves are finished.
I hope that for you too.
But what about you? What are some things you've done this week to avoid writing?
Well, as you can tell, I also have a change of scenery. I didn't redo my entire office setup, but I just turned my desk so that I was facing the wall so that I could try to focus a little better. But in terms of strange activities, I've been doing a lot of napping instead of writing. I hit burnout pretty hard the past couple of days, and so I've just been trying to regain some energy, and napping is something that does that for me.
Yeah, I hit burnout way sooner than you did, but I think that's definitely where I'm at right now. In terms of the goals that we had last week, I know you had some goals that we ended on. How has this burnout affected you reaching your goals?
I don't know if it affected me reaching my goals so much because I had a couple of really good days. So what my goals were last week was to stay on pace and to hit the word count numbers every day. There were several days when I went well above that, and I was hitting 3,200, 3,500. So I was making up time. But then there were days when I would maybe get 200 or 300. And so I've really discovered that I am an ebbs and flow sort of writer. When I am on, I'm on, and I'm working and I'm hitting big numbers, but then I need time to recuperate. So I am pretty much staying on track with the word count. I'm only a couple thousand behind. So I'm really proud about that. Also, last week I said that I wanted to get into my villain's head a little bit more. And I feel like I was successful with that. I got a lot of his backstory down and a lot of his motivations down. And that also gave me a lot of words. So
Nice.
I think that goal-wise, I hit my target. What about you?
So I didn't have goals associated with the word count. I decided really early on with Nano that I wasn't going to hold myself to that because it was something that I knew if I got behind, it would just be too daunting of a task and it would really demotivate me. But so I decided last week that I wanted to pick a character of the week and really focus on them and focus on their role in the story and their relationships and things, and just focus on one character, because my story is told from multiple points of view. And I feel like so far as that goal, I did do that. So I picked one of my characters. I wouldn't say she's the main character, but she becomes way more important as you get near the end of the book. And so what I did with her was I wrote a scene from probably her last chapter, and what's going to be one of the last chapters of the book, just to kind of reorient me and refocus what the story is about. And I think that that helped a lot, because it reminded me of what I'm, writing toward, even though I told myself I wasn't going to write out of order, and I told myself that I wasn't going to write pieces of chapters or skip ahead or anything. So far as that goes, I did reach that goal, and I worked with her character all week, but I wrote 2 days this week. I got, I think, probably 2,500 words written this whole week, and my word count total for the whole of this NaNo, I'm only sitting at 13,000. So I'm a bit behind, but again, I'm not holding myself to the word count goal, because I think that would just be too much pressure.
So let's talk a little bit about that, because NaNo does have a lot of pressure attached to it. So, let's talk a little bit about pros and cons of participating in NaNo and NaNo as a challenge. What are some of the pros that you see from this?
Well, I think I've talked about it a little bit before, but for me, NaNo, this happened to me last year when I participated, and definitely I'm feeling it this year too. NaNo is something that forces you to be in the mindset of writing your story. Even if you don't write every day, I still open my notebook every day, and I'm still planning every day. And that's definitely a positive, because even though outside of NaNo, I'm thinking about the story every day, it's not like I'm actively working on it. And if I'm not actively working on it, stuff's not getting done with the story. So that's something that I really love about NaNo, is that it forces you to focus. And of course, one other positive of NaNo is that it forces you to get words on the page, even if they're shit words, which I feel like a lot of the time they are. There's still words that I didn't have before. Like, I was looking at my word count for the story as a whole, with all of the different events that I've participated in, last year's NaNo, Camp NaNo in July, and then this NaNo. I have 35,000 words of this story written total, which is 35,000 more than I ever would have gotten if I wasn't doing these events. And it's awesome. Even if they're shit words, even if I don't like anything that I've written, I can go back and edit those words. I can turn those shit words into something that I'm actually proud of. But I couldn't do that if I didn't have words on the page. Even if you write 100 words a day, it's still 100 more than you had before. So we're tempted to feel really bad about ourselves because we didn't complete the word count goal or whatever it is. At the same time, you have to remind yourself, at least I did it. I did it, and this is something that I accomplished. So what about you? What are some positives that you've taken away from NaNo 3 weeks into it?
So this is my third NaNo, and the previous 2, I was working full time during them, and I just was not able to devote what you needed to devote to completion. So this is
really difficult.
Yeah, it is really difficult. So this is the first NaNo that I felt like I could fully participate in.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm getting out of it, the positives that I'm getting out of it is the setting of a routine, and not just consistency of time and consistency of work, but also just the knowledge that I can hit big word count numbers. Being able to do almost 25,000 words in half a month is something that I really had never thought that I could do.
Mm-hmm.
And so because of the routine that I'm doing with NaNo, it's showing me my potential. And of course, going forward, I'm not going to hit these numbers every day.
Oh yeah, no.
But I know that I can. And, just having that knowledge is empowering, especially knowing that I want to do this full time.
Yeah, for sure. And especially for us, I know that a lot of people unfortunately don't have the luxury of participating in Nano and having as much free time as I think we both do. But it's definitely a good window into what your life could look like if you're going to be a full-time writer, and kind of what routines you need to have in place in order to be successful at that. Because even though I hate this phrase, when you're writing, you kind of do need to be a self-starter, right? You need to have that motivation in yourself in order to like get your ass in the chair and start writing. And this forces you to do that.
There is a term which Joanna Penn uses, which is author entrepreneur. You know, you have to be an entrepreneur if you want to make a career out of being an author. It's a business.
Yeah, that I will say that was one of my motivations behind redoing The Office, because I knew that I needed a space that felt more, I don't know, conducive to the work that I was doing. And so it wasn't just, you know, distraction from writing. It was like, okay, I want a space that actually motivates me and is something that I'm going to use. And and so I'm just putting bookshelves together.
So then let's switch over and talk about the cons for Nano, because we've both mentioned that we're struggling a bit with it. And I mean, it is hard. So what are some negatives that you see with participating?
Well, one of the ones that hit me really hard before Nano even started was I decided back in July that I was going to participate in this. And I think because I had it in my head that I was going to be working on my story in November, I didn't work on the story between July and November. And I think part of that mindset is like, you can't start working on it until November. And so I didn't get any work done, even though it's a great motivator and it's a great way to set up those routines. You need to do it outside of November. And that's the challenge. Another downside, I think, to Nano is that pressure to hit the word count every day. We already talked about this a little bit in, I think it was our first video, but because there is that word count, you want to hit that 1667 every day. A lot of the time I find myself wondering, am I just writing this in order to get that word count every day, or are these words necessary? And so that's definitely a downside, because on the days when you don't write, or the days when you don't hit that word count, it makes you feel really guilty. I mean, I don't know about everybody else, but I feel super guilty on the days that I don't write or don't hit that word count, because I chose to participate in this. And so I feel like because I chose this, I should, you know, be able to get the word count done. And the days that I don't, it just feels really shitty. It's a great event to get you motivated to write, but at the same time, you know, seeing other people getting these really high word counts every day. You had sent me this screenshot of a guy's Nano word count. He was like writing 5,000, 3,000, 7,000 words every day. And it's like, holy shit, I'm not doing that. I'm not getting those word counts at all.
He won Nano, I think it was on the 14th.
Fuck.
I was like, come on, dude.
It's one of those things where you're like comparing yourself to other people. If you're not hitting that word count, like, oh my God, and does this mean that I'm not as dedicated as somebody else who's making better word counts than I am? And you really have to train yourself to stop those intrusive thoughts, because they're so demotivating. And you have to have, I think you have to have a lot of self-awareness in order to do an event like this, and not get bogged down in the what I call the shoulds. Like, I should get this word count, I should be writing every day. Yeah. And
I think self-awareness is important for sure, especially, you know, Nano at times, and this is one downside that I see, seems to be just a content generator for a lot of people on social media. Like, their entire social media pages is just like taken over by Nano. Multiple times a day they're posting about it, and you're seeing other people's word counts. And so the comparisonitis is difficult to deal with during this time,
I like that term.
especially when you're seeing people who are having such successes. And, it's important to congratulate people on their successes without internalizing it and making it your failure. And that's something that, it's a daily thing. I mean, I struggle with it as well. But
I think a lot of people do. It's just not something that we want to talk about because nobody wants to talk about, well, I'm failing and I'm really behind in my writing, when there are other people who win NaNo on the 14th.
Yeah. And you know what? That's great. Good for that person. I wish that I could be that person, but I am not. I am, a little slower pace, trying my best.
And that's all you can really ask of yourself. I mean, just to try your best.
Yeah.
What other downsides have you encountered in participating in NaNo?
For me, I think the burnout is a big downside, but not just the burnout at the end. It's a huge push for the entire month. And, even if you're not writing every day or hitting that word count every day, you're constantly thinking about it. You are constantly thinking about your story. You're trying to problem solve in your head. You're trying to get to know your characters, living with them, talking to them, sounding like a crazy person, having a conversation with them in your kitchen. So, I mean, it is a big event for the entire month. But even within the month itself, I'm having a lot of smaller burnouts because consistency is not something that is my strong suit. I am a stop or go person, and to go all the time is very exhausting for me. And so that's
you can't be on all the time. I don't think we're built like that.
Some people are. No, some people have high consistency, and for them, they know their like optimal performance level and they can consistently perform that. And so for some people that is 1,600 words a day, or maybe it's 500 words a day, whatever. For me, I'm like 3,500 or nothing. that's where I'm at. And so it has taken me a couple of weeks in to realize that maybe I should be using that to my advantage instead of trying to struggle against it and forcing myself to do the word count every day. And instead picking days where I know it's an optimal time for me to be writing, and then in between those days doing things that are restful, that will regenerate that energy for me so that I can hit the numbers on the days that I specify to hit them.
And you just reminded me, like you were saying earlier, the kind of author entrepreneur, we're obviously doing an activity right now that's not writing. But it's something that's important to both of us. And I think we both have those other activities that we find important that are related to writing, but it's not actively sitting down and getting words on the page. And so making time for those other things and figuring out where writing falls when you're doing something else, I think is really important too, because you can't write all the time. And even when you're finished with that book, whatever it is that you're working on, there's a whole mess of other things that you need to do to get that book out into the world, if that is your goal. And so figuring out where writing falls when you're doing all of these other things, social media, if you have a YouTube channel or something, or if you're doing book reviews, or if you're working with your cover artist, whatever it is, like if you're not going to write every day, finding the days that work well for you, doing that activity, and having other days that are designated for all of the other things that you need to get done or want to get done.
Well, and also, to your point, all of those other things cost energy. I mean, so for some people, those activities, like social media activities, are easier than other people. Like, for example, these conversations that we have, we're both a bit extroverted, at least with each other, and so it doesn't really.
I think that's the caveat, with each other.
But so it's not as tiring for us to have these conversations where it might be for somebody else. And
Mhm.
so it's also understanding yourself and, how much activities cost you. And so writing for me cost me a lot because
Yeah.
I'm pouring a lot of myself out, and all this like the creativity of it costs a lot. And so to be doing it so consistently where, just last month I was writing maybe 2 days a week, 3 days a week, to writing every single day or trying to write every single day was a big transition. And so, you know, I'm stumbling through it, but I'm getting through it.
Yeah, I love the meme that I'm sure you've seen like a million different versions of it, but it's like the person writing and the pen is like connected to
Their
a
vein.
tube in their vein and they're writing
Yeah.
with their blood. I mean, that's what it feels like sometimes. It feels like you're literally just pouring yourself out onto the page. I mean, there are some days when it's like, it goes so easy and it's not a struggle, but that's not every time you go to sit down and write. And I'm willing to bet other people feel the exact same way.
Yeah. So then let's talk about goals for next week. What do you want to get accomplished?
So I really only have one goal that I want to focus on for this coming week, and that is to kind of work out the arc of the entire book. Because, like I said, I've really been focusing on the individual characters and their arcs and their journeys through the story, but I still feel like I need a central plot. And that might sound obvious to some people.
That would be important, yes.
Yeah, and like, oh yeah, I'm writing this book, the book needs a plot. And I have had a plot in the back of my head and kind of in the background of the story, but I feel like I need to make that the forefront this week and just focus on that and focus on how this central plot affects all of the other characters, because I've really been avoiding it, and I've been avoiding it because I haven't entirely worked it out yet. So I think now's the time to actually work out the plot and figure out what the heck is going on, and figure out what my we talked about it in week one, but what like the back matter for my book is, what the Amazon description is, what exactly is that story. I've been focusing on the series as a whole because I know that I want this to be a series. The first book, this is not the end of the story. I need to focus on the story of book one. What is book one about? That is the big question that I need to answer. And I think in order to help me with that goal, I was reading Fantasy Fiction Formula. It's a really great, uh, you know, writing book. And I think I want to read a couple more chapters in that and take notes and see in what ways that it can help me figure out the plot of my story. What about you? What are some of your goals for next week?
So I have a similar goal to yours. I'm a little bit struggling with the main plot and the side plot, the secondary plots, and how they all kind of weave together.
Mhm.
Um, but what I'm really struggling with, and what I want to focus on next week, is getting the emotions of the story right. Because, as I talked about in the first week, my story is about a world where the weather is controlled by the emotions of a man.
Yeah.
And so emotion is a central aspect of the story, and and connecting that with the weather in this world has been a little bit harder than I thought, because
Yeah.
as of now it's just been raining a lot, and then I need to be a little bit more creative than that.
Yeah, I remember we were talking about this the other day, and you're like, I don't know anything else other than like having it rain.
Yeah. So in my head, it's one of those, like those memes where it's like, oh, the first draft in my head and then the first draft on paper, and they just look, completely different.
Yeah.
So that's something that I'm going to work on, is the emotions in the story, and then getting the central plot and the subplots to tie together.
So it sounds like we have some major work on our story to do this week, major goals. And I wish you all of the best in your writing
Thank
this
you.
week, because I know it's not going to be an easy task.
And the best to you too. And the best to everybody else out there. Good luck.
Yep,
We're almost there.
for all the weary writers out there, we wish you all the best, and we wish you happy writing.